Hello and welcome to Sandwiched on Gypsy Radio. I'm your host, Becky Nelson, and it is Motivation Monday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to Gypsy Radio Sandwiched. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being patient with me as I took a week off last week to take care of some family things. Lost our Aunt Barbara, 96 years old. Nothing to snivel at. She had a wonderful life, but we did lose her last Monday, and so we had the services yesterday, and it was a beautiful day. Beautiful day, beautiful day. So, rest in peace, Babs, and we got to move on here. So, just like the mantra, keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. Here we go. So today's podcast is kind of a modge podge of where I am today with this whole 365-day goal, which is absolutely most terrorizing but exhilarating experience in a while I've done here, the podcast, to where I am now to where I want to be. And, if you are watching this on YouTube, then I ask that you click the like button and shoot me a comment and let me know some of the topics that you'd like to hear related to being sandwiched at the age of like 50 to 60 years old. This could be something to do with anything to do with like motivation for getting up in the morning or keeping a positive mindset, or how do you handle, half empty kind of people around you, and soul searching, because I do want to continue with that content vibe, but I also want to kind of incorporate other things going on that will help us all to better understand where this goal is going to go to in the next couple months. So Motivation Monday kind of started out to be like, hey, I'm sandwiched between this elderly individual that I'm caregiving for, and then my grandchildren who I watch a couple days a week. And I want to kind of give tips and tricks and funny stories. And so let's just start with a funny story today. So my granddaughter is 5 now, but she's walking around telling everybody she wants to be 7. So a couple weeks ago, we were just chit-chatting because now my grandson, who is 12 months now, sorry, what am I thinking? 14 months, a year and 2 months. Hello. Been a long weekend. Anyway, he's starting to get kind of an affection for my dog. I have a little mini schnauzer, and my granddaughter's grown up with my mini schnauzer, basically. And so now there's kind of a little bit of a embattlement of who's gonna play with my dog. So a couple weeks ago, I made a joke and I said, "You know what? When you're 7, Grammy will get another dog." Didn't think anything of it. Didn't think anything of it. And so the last 2 weeks, she's going around saying, "Can I be 7? Can I be 7?" And I said, "Well, why do you wanna be 7 so bad?" She says, "Because then grandma will get another dog, and then I'll have a dog, and my brother will have a dog." Okay, fine. I understand. I opened that can of worms, but she actually is now to the point where she's telling other people. So the moral of this whole funny story is that, she's manifesting this dog, right? She's manifesting this dog that's not going to come into our lives for 2 years. And so it's kind of fun because like now I can be like, "So, what would you name your dog in 2 years? And what color schnauzer do you want in 2 years?" And so we're going to kind of just play this out and see what happens, and who knows, maybe Papa will pull the trigger a little earlier and we'll get a second dog next year. But right now, she's going around telling everybody that when she is 7, she's going to get a new dog so that her brother has one and she has one when they come to my house. So I guess you just kind of never know what they're going to grasp onto. Um, and it's also one of those experiences where I think I want her to start feeding my dog, like in the mornings, putting food in her bowl, putting water in a bowl, maybe going with me when I drop her off at the groomers, maybe walking her when it gets nicer out. So she has an understanding of responsibility of this dog so that when we get 2 dogs, I can say, "Hey, listen, you wanted this dog, so you need to help me out with this dog," right? Because I think that's how we build responsibility through motivation and inspiration of the goal to get what they want. So manifesting that dog on a 2-year plan, uh, definitely was not in my wheelhouse, but I am a wonderful Grammy in my opinion, and I do love to fulfill my obligations and my promises. And so we will work towards that promise being filled in 2 years. So then on the other hand, I think about my mother-in-law who I make deals with all the time. She hates to take showers. as they grow into that stage of dementia where things become very uncertain and everything is fearful, we'll get in the shower and I'll put her in the shower and she's very mobile to the point where she can make it in there herself and then I just kind of help her maneuver through the process. But when she first jumps in the shower, she's 2 feet in and she's like, "Ooh, oh, ooh." And I'll say, "Is the water too hot? Is the water too cold?" And she can't really answer me. So it's just a shock, right? So a lot of times I'll say, "Okay, tonight is shower night." And she'll say, "Oh, can we do it tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Okay, tomorrow morning is shower." And then I'll say, "Tomorrow morning is shower. Oh, can we do it tonight?" So it's kind of like a kid who just doesn't want to clean their room or do a chore. So I've come up with a motivation where if we shower in the morning and she is accepting of her shower time and she does a good job, then I will let her have some cookies during lunch. And I'm very, very hard on the sweets because at this age, diabetes can set in, very quickly with the sugar intake. So I'm really, really tough on the sweets. So I always make it something really inviting. And lately, when I say, tonight we're going to shower, she goes, "Oh, what kind of cookies do you have?" Even though she has dementia, she can remember that there is a reward, and I don't know how that works, but it works, and I've been trying to use that to try and curve that drama of having to get in the shower and, um, feel either the cold or the hot water, whichever she's feeling, because she never really explains it to me. So motivation and inspiration, it's a continued theme within Motivation Monday, because I think you can never run out of ways to motivate people. And I think it's harder now than ever to not want to motivate the people in my life because I feel like I have to motivate my mother-in-law to keep going. I mean, she just lost her sister and she's now 90. And so I have to give her hope and faith. And, I'll say to her, garage sale season is coming. It's right around the corner. And although we won't do a lot of garage sales because of the fact that, she's gotta walk up to the house and she runs out of air and all that, I'll take her to a few because I think that if you can just bring some normalcy back to their lives, then that will motivate them to continue moving forward one foot in front of the other. And as for my granddaughter motivation, like I said, the dog reward or the dog theme is definitely going to play out for the next 2 years. And, I think that by the time she is ready to pick up her dog, that will obviously be my dog, but, she'll take care of it with me. She's going to be so excited and exhilarated. The thing's probably going to have a first and last, or first and middle name. It's probably going to have dog, but it's probably going to have treats. It's probably going to have a wardrobe. Who knows what she'll start to collect for this thing, but the motivation and the inspiration that we will use to make that a timely reward, I think that's gonna be really cool. So, today I just ask that, you think about things that motivate you, things that inspire you, people that you need to motivate or feel need to be motivated, and how do you get them there, Because it is kind of a cheerleading job. You're kind of the team captain. And even last week going through the process of planning a funeral with my cousin, her mother's, of course, the deceased, we worked as a team. And, at the end of the day, the service was perfect because we put so much work into it ahead of time that it couldn't be. I mean, yeah, you have a little flaw here with music, or you have a little flaw here with, words when you go up there to talk, because sometimes that's nerve wracking. But at the end of the day, it got done. And that's because we put the work in. And that's how you motivate, because you motivate by bringing up goals and checklists and sometimes flow charts to get people to understand if and then. If we do this, then we have to do that. Or worst case scenario. One of the things I liked about the show This Is Us was when Randall and his wife would play worst case scenario, and they'd come up with crazy stuff like worst case scenario, the boyfriend's a serial killer. Of course you don't want that, right? But you're coming up with the most wacky doodlest worst case scenarios so that when you bring it back down to the level of common sense and normalcy, worst case scenario, the boyfriend is a little older than her, And so at the end of the day, you have your humor, but you also have your flow chart. I use that kind of tactic on my older kids too, I have boys and, they sometimes don't really think things through as thoroughly as I do, and I get teased about that sometimes, but when they need to make tough decisions, when they need to make big decisions, one of them will come to me and, hem and haw about it and throw all these different ideas, and then the other one comes to me and he sometimes has already made the decision. And, that's just personality. But if you wanna stay connected and you wanna stay involved in the motivation, inspiration part, I think even if they make a decision, you have to go back a couple weeks later and say, "How'd that go for you? How'd that work out for you? Was that the goal you were looking for?" And search for that conversation to hopefully help them understand that they didn't make the quite right decision. They can go back and adjust it accordingly. People do that with jobs sometimes. You'll take a job and then you're like, a month later, 30 days in, oh, like it, love it, leave it. And we have that flexibility because it's our decision to be where we want to be and make the decisions that we want to make. And with kids, I think they make decisions and it's kind of like ready, fire, aim. And so you have to pull that arrow back. My daughter-in-law said something to me the other day. She said, "You know that one quote where it says that you're pulling a arrow back to be able to move forward, right? So you pull the arrow back until you have to take steps back in order to launch forward." And it made me think to myself, okay, so when a kid aims an arrow, right? They're more so worried about the bullseye. They're not really worried about the technique to pull it back first. So it's like a quick pull, boom, and maybe it doesn't make it to the bullseye. But when the parent is behind that child, whatever age they are, or that person, that loved one, and they pull on the back of that bow to get that arrow back further, then your motivation is going to go further. Your goals are going to be reached further. And I truly believe that in this day and age, you have to have someone to help you pull your arrow sometimes. Um Going back to our cousin, she flew in last Wednesday. And it's no secret. Her mom was 96. So this wasn't something that came out unexpectedly. It wasn't a car accident or a heart attack. It was aged, right? She aged out. Um, but as we're driving back from the airport, I start to ask her some questions. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And at that point in the time that she was with us, it wasn't her thing. She needed to have a day to process what had happened before she could move into planning mode. When she finally came to me and she had her notebook and we started to do the planning, then that's when I was able to pull back on that bow with her and launch that arrow so precise that everything got done the way that we wanted it done. And so anytime you have someone who's struggling to make a decision, meet a goal, reach a milestone, I don't think it's your responsibility to take the arrow and put it in your quiver. I believe it's your responsibility or in your bow rather. I believe it's your responsibility to get behind them and pull back on that bow so that that arrow comes out and it's shot further because there's two people working on the pull and then one letting go to reach their goals. And I think that that's a huge message to people that are struggling because we always want to try and jump in and take the reins. And I'm so guilty of that sometimes. Um, but I have to stop and I have to think, okay, this person, they executed the decision making process. They know the goal, they know the intention, and they know how to get there, kinda. So what can I do to help fill those gaps? What can I do to help check those things off the list? What can I do to help color in the picture, the black and white picture? And that is what I think motivation and inspiration looks like to me. One foot in front of the other is wonderful, but at the end of the day, if the person can't even pull the arrow back to get moving, then I think you have to be behind them to pull the arrow back with them. Um, when you think of like, the kids in school right now, like there's so many things going on in our society where, if I was a 12-year-old kid and the social media intentions can be so good, but yet so bad. And if I was a 12-year-old kid, I think that it would be really hard to kind of decipher what information I need and what information I don't. And I think that what we're seeing in society now is just information overload. I've noticed lately that a lot of people on Facebook who used to comment on everything, they're kind of starting to die off. And my theory on this is they've commented. They've given their advice or their suggestions, and nobody's listening. So now they're just like, screw it. I'm not even gonna comment on that, you know? And I'll put something about, like, something completely crazy that the governor has said. The other day he was talking about changing the retail tax rate or eliminating it. Well, that's great and wonderful, but I was like, "Hey, local businesses are gonna lose out because technically, your or local communities are gonna lose out because technically local businesses are supposed to give a tax, dollar to the communities when they sell things. And if you just, like, cut it off, then you cut it off and your local communities are done, getting that revenue." Another thing that was brought to my attention was that the local police chief said they're no longer going to pull people over for, invalid registrations or expired plates, and he cited the fact that people just get off. They go to court and they get off, right? They either bring the proper plate in, aftermath, or they just go to the judge and say they can't afford it. And under the Safety Act of Illinois, they just say, "Well, you know what? That's fine. Just write on the plates until you can get new ones." Those are my theories, but at the end of the day, he said they were just pretty much eliminating those kind of traffic stops. And my question to you is like, okay, but then why are we supposed to be, lawful in that aspect? And why should we move forward with the way that we've been doing things all along? It's real easy to get in a rut where you just kind of want to do as everybody else is doing. And, going against the grain or going towards the wave is not always simplistic. And so when you put one foot in front of the other, motivation, inspiration, and you're trying to get people to respond, and then all of a sudden they're just shutting down. I think that's a time to have one-on-one conversations. So if your kid's shutting down and not really doing much on social now, you gotta kinda ask yourself, "Okay, what triggered that? And why are they not motivated or inspired anymore?" You think about, like, 12, 15 year olds, it only takes a couple things to trigger them these days. We're just a more stronger personality back then, like, in the '80s and '90s, and I think that it's just we're just built differently. But if you have a kid that's, like, shutting down or a kid that, like, sits in their room all the time, his or her room, and, they're just maybe sitting there on a game all the time or something, I think you have to definitely know that maybe they need you to pull back that bow and arrow to get them through this time and help them to, find their motivation or inspiration. It's our responsibility to watch society, whether it be old or new. It's our responsibility to watch these kids and these elderly individuals, because they're in their most fragile state. I think that anyone who's in their 50s right now, they're in that mindset that, my gosh, how do I help these people? Like, how do I help them get out of this rut? Whether it be drugs or mental health or divorce or bad relationships. How do you help people? Well, you can only extend your arm so far, and then they have to grasp on. And once they've grasped on, then the hard part's over. The motivation and inspiration to get them to extend their arm out so you can help them, that's where it gets real difficult. So tune in next Monday. I'm going to have some more things to say about that. But at the end of the day, just remember that one foot in front of the other doesn't always mean that you're walking alone. Walking alone, you can walk with someone. And by all means, when you think about that arrow and how that arrow goes forward with much more force. Think about pulling back on someone's bow with them versus just grabbing the bow or taking an arrow out of your quiver and putting it in your bow to shoot their goals. They have to do that themselves, or else it doesn't have the same meaning, in my opinion. So with my granddaughter's advice, the 2-year plan, we'll start working towards her being 7 and me being a new Schnauzer owner from a second time. And for the people that are in your lives who don't wanna take showers or, just don't wanna come out of their rooms, you gotta motivate them. Gotta find a way to motivate them. So, I hope that today's episode brings you hope and inspiration yourself. Always keep looking up, always keep trying to find that silver lining, but most of all, just keep moving forward. Have yourself a good afternoon and make sure you like and share this episode with someone who needs to hear these words. And I'll see you back here for Freedom Friday. Have a blessed day.